Alright, it is day 10 of Silent Movie Marathon 2. Yesterday I just decided to leave it at the Great White Silence. The film moved me to the point that I felt like that day needed its space. I could have watched another couple of films that were later on in the night, but just decided not to leave it and to come back fresh today and continue on with this thing. And I've worked it out now with the few Blu-rays I have left. The ever-dwindling stack has become quite short. I think I can finish this in the next 3 days. So today, tomorrow, and the next day. And today is the Tuesday the 15th of September, so Thursday the 17th of September I hope to complete this. And yeah, and there should be plenty more films to go. There's a lot of short films to do. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feature films. No, 6 feature films to go. 7 kind of, technically. Okay, there's a load of feature films to go and a load of short films to go, and I think I can do it in 3 days. In the next 3 days, which will then lead me up to a final total of 12 days of the Silent Movie Marathon 2. So I can kind of call it the 12 Days of Silence. So yeah, the film I'm going to watch today, or the one I'm going to be starting with today, because I'm going to continue watching films today, is Diary of a Lost Girl by G.W. Pabst. I have not seen anything from him. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about this film, other than the fact that it also stars Fritz Rasp, I believe, who is one of my favourite German silent film actors. Not that the list is very long, but I enjoy him in everything I see him in, from Metropolis to Woman in the Moon and Spione, which I watched the other day. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him in this, and the lead star of this, Louise Brooks, is apparently quite a famous figure of the silent era, so it'll be good to see one of her films. I know that Pandora's Box is one that she's more famously known for, as far as I'm aware. It probably says on the back, actually. So have a look. Directed with virtuoso flair by the great G.W. Pabst. Represents the final pairing of the filmmaker with screen icon Louise Brooks. So I guess the director and the actress worked together before, and this was mere months after their first collaboration in the now legendary Pandora's Box. So that was also by the same director, G.W. Pabst, and they did 2 films together, and this was the second and final one. So let's check it out and just carry on with this thing and plow through it. Alright, Diary of a Lost Girl, film number 23. Really good, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. There was a lot of great things about this film that I enjoyed. It follows the main character here, played by Louise Brooks. I don't know how you pronounce the name. I don't know if it's a German name, Timian or Timian. In my head I was imagining Timian, but we'll just call her the Lost Girl, because it is the Diary of a Lost Girl, and the diary kind of is in the first half of the film, then it just kind of gets thrown out the window. But she's given a diary at the beginning. She writes stuff in it and stuff like that. We don't really see that much of it, but it really is. It's beyond just her having a physical diary. This film is about her life, or a very turbulent period of her life. She's a young girl. She lives in it with a wealthy family who own a pharmacy, and her father, I guess her mother has passed away. Her father gets the maid of the house pregnant. And because she gets pregnant, she gets sent off, and she ends up killing herself, and she was the girl's only friend. And so it kind of starts the kind of domino effect of this entire film, where the lost girl, Timian, we'll just call her Timian. Timian, she basically goes through a series of losses. She loses, seemingly her only friend, and then she loses her innocence. She loses her freedom. She loses her purity. She's taken advantage of by a man who works in the pharmacy, played by Fritz Rasp. At the beginning, he seems to kind of have a thing for her, and it seems like there might be kind of a budding romance between the two. And I thought, that's strange to see Fritz Rasp in a kind of romantic role. But then soon enough, he turned out to be a right old creep, which is very fitting to him. I mean, no offense to the guy, who's no doubt long since passed. He just has the face of a real bastard. That smile is just so creepy. He has almost like an extra set of teeth, where other people, he's just like a massive grin, like really creepy, like self-satisfied monster in a way. It's really unnerving, and it fit perfectly for the role that he had in the film, where he was kind of just a bit of a lech, and he, did he rape her in the beginning? I don't know. He pretty much forced himself on her when she was pretty much asleep. I mean, it was shocking stuff. She has a young child, and the family takes responsibility. But as I said, Timian's father gets the maid pregnant, so he sends her off, and she kills herself out of grief. And a new maid comes in, Meta, And Meta is a right cunt. I mean, there's one of the foulest characters I've seen in a film in a long time. I mean, there's worse, but I mean, just unrelenting. She just goes out to destroy Timian's life, basically. She basically wraps Timian's father around her finger. She becomes not only the maid that he sleeps with, but the woman of the house, you know. And she wants kids, and she wants to get rid of Timian and send her off, and she won't let her see her child. She gives the child away. You know, Meta just takes control of everything, and Timian's father just kind of seems as if he's upset that he's losing his daughter, but you know, on the other hand, sex, you know, I mean, he's a complete pushover in the story, and he just bows to the will of this new maid who comes in and ruins the entire family, you know, or at least, you know, for Timian, you know. I don't know, you kind of see looks in her father's eyes where you kind of know that he's, you know, he wishes that he could have a relationship with his daughter, but he just knows that he can't go against the wishes of his maid. I mean, he's a complete pushover in the film. You know, like when they send her off to this school for wayward girls, she goes to kind of like hug her father and say goodbye, and Meta just grabs her and is like, no, you know, you're not even gonna get to kiss your father goodbye. You know, you're going off. Fuck off. You know. Oh, I just wanted to reach in and just grab that bitch's throat and just throttle her. Horrible. And then there's other characters who become, you know, just like, oh, you know, like there's a lot of hateable characters in the film, and I guess that's where it lays it on thick, is that Timian comes across so many bad people who manipulate her and do all these bad things to her and stuff like that, that it's almost like, feel sorry for her, feel sorry for her, feel sorry for her, and it works. I mean, Louise Brooks is incredible. She's an American actress. I read up a little bit about her, and because it said that this was her final film with G.W. Pabst, I was wondering if she was one of the casualties of kind of Hollywood or just movie industry in general tragedy, because you always hear about these young actresses who back in those days, you know, would kill themselves or whatever. I was wondering if maybe she was one of those tragic figures, but no, she lived until the 80s. She had a full long life. I think she retired from the movie business in the 30s, but she had a great kind of little career as an actress, and she became, I think, disillusioned with the Hollywood industry, and so she went to Europe to make a few films, and this was one of them. So she is an American actress in a German film with German actors. I wonder how that worked just from a performance standpoint. It's very interesting. I'll probably read the booklet and have a look at the video essay on the Blu-ray at some point as well. That's the case with a lot of these films. There's documentaries on almost every one of the Blu-rays, but I just haven't got the time to watch them because I need to keep going with the films themselves. And I'm thinking later on I'll do that and maybe kind of do a roundup of this whole thing at the end, like an epilogue kind of thing, final thoughts, and maybe notes that I've seen from the documentaries. Anyway, so yeah, the film takes us on a journey through Timian's kind of a few years in her life where things just keep getting thrown at her, and she has to kind of make her own way. She is a lost girl, she's a lost person. There's a great part in the film where she sees her dad for the first time in a long time in a nightclub, and he's there with his new wife now, Meta, and the guy, Fritz Rasp, the pharmacy man, who kind of took advantage of her at the beginning of the film, and they see where she is and where she's come since, you know, since they cast her out, basically. And it's a very sad scene, but it's so effective. It's a brilliant scene where, you know, as soon as Timian sees her father, the smile is wiped from her face in a really realistic fashion too. And she's walking through the crowd of people dancing to try to get to him, and he's trying to walk through the crowd too, but people keep dancing in front of her. She can't get. It's like a dream where you're running and you can't reach the destination, and then they just stop and just look at each other, and it's just heartbreaking stuff, you know, because he's been taken advantage of, he has been manipulated, and she is the casualty of that, and a father and daughter have been separated and broken apart by this cruel bitch called Meta, who, you know, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's M-E-T-A. It just makes me think of Meta film, but it might be Meta or something like that, but I'll just say Meta for now. And yeah, so horrible, heartbreaking scene, and then one of the people who's with Timian is just, he rolls a tear and he says, you know, now you truly are lost, just like the rest of us, you know. And she falls into a crowd that are, you know, not really in the best place in their lives, and there's a few other characters and things like that, and I enjoyed a lot about the film. There's some great scenes in there, but overall I felt like it was a bit too disjointed. Well, not disjointed, it follows a good flow. I'm sorry, there's noises everywhere. Notifications, messages, all that shit. Hang on. Let me just make sure there's nothing important. No, there isn't. So, yeah, phone silenced. Yeah, where was my train of thought there? Yeah, not disjointed, it flows well as a narrative, but it just kind of you know, the opening, it sets up what happens, and all of a sudden she has a kid, and it's like, okay, you know, I mean, we see Fritz Rasp kind of like leaning over on a bed, and then the next scene is the baby being rolled in, and then the family's like, we've decided as a family that, you know, you don't get to keep your own child, and then she's off to the school for, you know, wayward girls. And then I thought that was going to be the whole film. I thought the whole film was going to be her kind of battling the oppression of being in this like horrible, strict kind of institution run by this woman who just was brilliant as like the tough kind of domineering mistress. And then there was a guy who works there as well, this big bald-headed guy who has a creepy smile, and like he was really effective. Like he was a great like villainous kind of character. But then like after a while, you know, she escapes from there, and it's like, oh, okay, I thought that was, the whole film was going to take place there, and it just kind of, it felt like it built to a moment that you'd get near the end of a film, but it happened within the space of about 15 minutes. So like a whole journey within that school, that, you know, institute, it felt a bit rushed. And then it dragged on a bit at the point where she goes out and she does something else. I won't get into that. And then the ending, I mean, it just, something about the flow and the timing of the sections of her story I didn't get along with, you know, and there was a few scenes that I wasn't too interested in. But overall, yeah, like there's one about this guy called Counter Onsdorf, I think it was, and he plays a fairly critical role in the film throughout the film. And his kind of, his own little scene at the beginning, it's a scene where he's trying to milk a cow. It just didn't feel like a good scene, to be honest. You know, I mean, it set up what his character was. He was a rich boy who was cast out by his uncle for being, you know, not good at anything, basically. But the scene just went on a bit too long and didn't really do much or say much. Anyway, overall, I really enjoyed the film. I gave it maybe an 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5. Really strong, you know, performances in there. So I thought Louise Brooks was fantastic. There's a little moment at the end where it's like the climactic moment, and she's like saying something to someone as if like, you know, and she's like, you know, getting a kind of, you know, saying the right thing. But as she's doing it, she's kind of, you can tell her lips, she's trying not to like smirk. And it just kind of dragged me out of it a little bit. I hate that when there's those little kind of tics where you can see the actor or actress is trying not to laugh or something. I don't like that, you know. And she's been hailed as a fantastic actress, and throughout the whole film, except for that moment, I think she was. She conveyed so much with so little, and it was a tough role to begin with because her character, there almost is no character there. She is a girl who never got a chance to grow up. We don't know who she is, we don't know what she likes, we don't know what she dreams of, we just know that she is trying to just get along and trying to, you know, I mean, we see what she learns at the end and how she prefers to move forward with her life, and that was great, but for most of the film she's just the victim, you know, and she's just kind of fighting against that just blindly almost, you know. So Louise Brooks did a lot with what she was given, I think, and a fantastic performance. So Diary of a Lost Girl, very, very good film. 8 out of 10, I'd say, around that ballpark, something like that. And yeah, this film has been censored and stuff. There's some kind of like, again, a lot of like kind of sexual references and things like that, and there's like a nude woman at the beginning, and when you see a picture, and I'm not sure who that nude woman was supposed to be. It makes me think that's the Fritz Rasp character, the pharmacy worker. Makes me think that he was sneaking and taking pictures of her while she was naked or something, and maybe that's kind of setting up that he's going to kind of take advantage of her, but he's looking at a picture of a nude woman from behind, so you can't really tell who it is, but yeah. So the film was heavily censored and stuff, and so I think this was put together in the fullest form that it can be. It was about 2 hours long, and I think that it had been cut down to like an hour and a half, something like that, so yeah, it's good to see films uncensored and stuff like that, and again, brought back to life on Blu-ray in the 21st century. Anyway, that's that. I think tonight I'm going to watch a few more short films, get some of them out of the way, and I'll probably end the night off with another viewing of one of the Wizard of Oz silent films, so we'll probably get another bathroom confessional from me. And then tomorrow I think I'm going to hit one of the two last long films I have. I have 2 more films that are around 2.5 hours long, so I'll hit one of those tomorrow and do maybe a couple more short films tomorrow, and then on Thursday we'll finish it off with with at least 3 features and a couple of shorts. I've planned the ending now. I've planned how I want to end this with a few films that I know I'm really going to enjoy, so I can't wait for that. I can't wait for this to be over, but I'm still enjoying the process of watching all these, and just seeing the stack so small makes me sad, but man, what a run it's been so far. Anyway, I should reflect on it later, not now. So Diary of a Lost Girl, great film, very, very good, and I'll see you when I decide what I'm going to watch next. Okay, just wanted to add in a little more about the film. Actually, I did, I did look back on the Blu-ray at the nude pictures that Fritz Rast was looking through, and it definitely looks like it's Louise Brooks. I mean, there's another one just behind the main one where you just see the back of her from, completely naked, and you can see it's her. But it looks like they're posed. So I don't know whether he did take advantage of her, whether he did rape her. I don't know. Obviously, maybe they had a sexual relationship. I don't know. It's but the way he kind of first makes his move on her is like, I've been waiting for this, for so long. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that was supposed to be, because they look like posed pictures. Maybe he stole them, I don't know. And he's keeping them right on the front desk, which is the pharmacy is in the house of her father. It's very strange. Anyway, one thing I did want to, that was just a side note, but one thing I wanted to talk about was the ending of the film, so if you want to just skip ahead a little to miss that if you don't want to hear about it, but just how she comes into the money of her father after he passes away, and so she can change her life completely, and she sees that Meta has been thrown out basically, which is very strange because she kind of married into the family and yet she's got nothing at the end of it. But I guess it shows that her father still remained loyal to her and true to her after all those years, even if he did wrong her by casting her out and not really fighting against the wishes of his new wife or his new lover at the time. And so, Timian gets the money, can change her life, and she can move away from what she was doing, which is prostitution. And she sees Meta, who now has 2 young kids that she had with Timian's father, and she sees her little sister for the first time, and she gets her to come over and give her a hug, and she gives her a hug, and then she realizes that she could have a terrible life, and so she gives the money to her little sister, and the little sister takes the money back, this big wad of cash, and shows it to Meta, her mother. And I just thought, oh, don't do it, don't do it. I thought that they were going to go for this kind of sickly sweet ending where Meta, this absolute cunt of a woman, would look at Timian and go, thank you. And, and Timian would go, it's okay, Didn't happen. Meta kind of looked down, she looked up at Timian, and then she just kind of left with the money. It stayed true to her character, and I really, really loved that, because it was a sweet moment from Timian. It was a symbol of how she was growing as a person and how selfless she had become through her problems and through the hardships, which is a very positive message, and again, very selfless one. And I love that they didn't water it down by having it be like a mushy moment between the two. They both don't like each other, and that stays the same, but for the sake of her little sister, and not having a horrible life like she had had growing up, I really, really liked that kind of beat of the film. It was a really, really great, a great part of it, I think, and that kind of notched it up a little bit for me as well. I'd probably maybe even give it an 8 out of 5, 8.5 out of 10, maybe a 4.5 out of 5 based on that, because I thought that was a really great bit of drama that worked really well within the framework of the whole story. There we go. On with the next film. Alright, before I continue, one more thing I wanted to add about Diary of a Lost Girl that I kind of remembered again, just before I'm about to start on the next film, was the lighting. The lighting was great, in like close-up shots of her face and stuff. Like the light would just be like beaming off of like certain parts of her face, and it was just really interesting. I thought the lighting was great in the film. Also, the bald guy in the Institute for the bad girls, kind of the wayward girls, I think it was called. The big bald guy who was creepy and imposing and stuff, and went along with the woman who ran the place, who was very strict. But there's a moment where he basically has to say to Louise Brooks' character, she's kind of looking out the window, he needs to say to her in the scene, stop looking out the window, sit down and get to work, because they have the girls working, sewing stuff. But instead of just like looking at her and saying get to work and pointing at the table, he comes up behind her really slowly and he just places his hand on the back of her neck and just grips it, and she kind of just moves back, and he slowly just kind of turns her around while holding her neck, and he walks her over to the table and he sits her down holding her neck, and then just points at the table. I mean, it's really effective and creepy and different, and I really liked that. As one of my favourite parts of the film. Even though it kind of creeped me out, I thought it was really effective. Anyway, that was it, and I'll figure out what the next film is and get back to you. Okay, so the next film in the Silent Movie Marathon 2 will be going all the way back to Battleship Potemkin, or the Blu-ray for it at least, which is, I believe, the Soviet Influence Volume 1, maybe Volume 2? Not too sure. But it's called The Soviet Influence at the top there. It has Battleship Potemkin and Drifters, a film by John Grierson, which is, I believe, a British film. Now, why is a Russian film and a British film coupled together? The Russian film being from 1925, the British film being from 1929. Well, because by the time Battleship Potemkin came out in the UK, they did it as a double feature with Drifters, which is only about, it's 41 minutes long, so it's like a short feature, a feature short, a short feature length short, I don't know. But it's 41 minutes long, so I'm going to check it out just for the sake of throwing another film in there. I don't think it really is like a similar film. I think it's in fact a documentary, and it's kind of a, I don't know, it's I think it's about fishing or something. I really don't know, so I'll just check it out, see what it is, see what it's all about, and just for the sake of adding another silent film into the mix, here we go with Drifters. Alright, Drifters, done. A really interesting documentary, and I can now see why it is both paired with the Blu-ray of Battleship Potemkin, or I believe I read the booklet. I read some of the booklet, and it's pronounced Battleship Potemkin. So there you go. I've been pronouncing it wrong, but who cares? Yeah, I could see why the films go together on this Blu-ray, and also why they were released together in the UK when Battleship Potemkin was released in the UK in 1929, 4 years after its initial release, I'm guessing, in Russia or USSR. And yeah, basically they both have a similar feel, because John Grierson kind of cut this documentary of fishermen, basically. The film opens, you see this kind of like small island, or not island, but I guess seaside town, not sure if it's an island or a village or whatever, but it's near you know, it's a seaside village, town, whatever, and you know, you see them going off, and I think when the intertitle says, like, you know, it kind of laments the past, how fishermen used to go out on these, you know, wooden ships and bring in fish, and now it's been taken over by steam and steel. So I guess, you know, even back then it's kind of looking back in a nostalgic way to how things used to be and how they are now. But for me it was really interesting to see how they went and caught fish back in 1929. It's a very dull subject for a film, but the way that it was presented was really cool and interesting. And the fact it was only 41 minutes long means that, well, I did get bored a few times. There was a few minutes where it was dragging a little bit, but because it's only 40 minutes long, I felt like it was the perfect length, really, to get across what it wants to get across. It kind of is shining a light on just the everyday working man, and not anyone in particular on the film, but just as a whole, I think. And you see them all, you know, sleeping in the ship, and you know, bringing in throwing the nets out, things like miles of netting they have to throw out, and they work like 8 hours into the night out in the North Sea. And then you see them bring the fish in, and then there's some underwater shots of the fish, which I'm not sure how staged they were. I mean, it looked like there was a bit of glass to kind of protect the camera, and I'm sure it wasn't filmed at sea. I don't know how that was done, but nonetheless I thought it was very cool, and the way the focus was going, I quite liked it. The music, there's a new score by innovative composer and performer Jason Singh. I thought it was brilliant. It was very hypnotic. I think Connie kind of heard a little bit. She said it was meditative. Yeah. And
that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I kind of get that. It was really, yeah, it kind of just was getting me into it in a weird way. But the main thing I think that you can kind of compare these two films is the editing. You know, close-ups of just like the cogs and the gears of the ship moving, like extreme close-ups, and the metal is glinting, and then it fades into like people, you know, in the bowels of the ship shoveling coal into the furnace and everything, and the steam coming out, and cutting between the people down below, the people above, the sea, the birds, the guy sticking his head out of the, you know, the window of the ship and calling across to someone else, and you see another boat, and like really fast editing style, not quite as rapid pace or as effective as in Battleship Potemkin, but you know, I could see where the influence, definitely the Soviet influence, as it says, came from when John Grierson made Drifters. And there's just some great shots in there, and I just loved its simplicity of just showing you, you know, the rigors of fishermen, you know, bringing in this, the herring, I think it was, that was the fish they were bringing in with the nets and stuff. So you see them go out, you see them endure a storm, lay down the nets, bring in the fish, and then go back and then sell the fish at the market, you know, in the harbour and stuff, and you see people bidding, and them being, all the fish being shipped into barrels and boxes, and ice put in, and the nails being put onto the boards, you know, to kind of pack the fish in. And then you see the nets again, it cuts back and it shows you like, remember this, and it really works. And then you see them going off on a train across this bridge, and a brilliant couple of shots, and it says, and now the harvest of the sea goes to the end of the world. And so I really liked just the whole arc of it really was just really interesting. I'm sure if this same film and everything about it, like, you know, okay, we're going to show fishermen going out, we're going to show them doing the, you know, catching the fish, we're going to show them having their dinner, going to sleep, waking up, beat by beat. If you did this film now, I wouldn't find it as interesting. It's just the intrigue of it being from 1929, it being a silent film, and being of, again, days gone by, years gone by, almost a century gone by, and I just find, you know, I just find even the mundane things interesting from back in those days. I guess I now can call myself someone who's just a, what's the word, not an aficionado, but a enthusiast of the 20s and the silent era and just that period of history, I guess. There's these whole silent films, you know, especially over this past couple of weeks, have really just, I don't know, I really like just looking back on that period of history, both in films and just, again, now seeing documentaries. This is, I think, the third silent documentary I've seen from the 20s. So yeah, overall, not too much to say about it compared to the other films, but I really did enjoy it. I give it maybe an 8 out of 10. You know, maybe that's a bit high, but no, I thought the cinematography was fantastic. I just loved the mundaneness of it, but it never, well, it did get boring a few times, but for the most part, the editing really spiced it up. And the music as well, I have to give credit to the guy, Jason Singh, really kind of, it was different, you know, it was modern, but I think it worked. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on Drifters. Also, John Grierson, I think he made the move to screen the film with Battleship Potemkin and made the smart decision to make sure that Drifters was shown before Battleship Potemkin, because that kind of gives the illusion to anyone who just walked into the cinema and saw these two films for the first time. They'd think that Sergei Eisenstein might have been, you know, taking notes from John Grierson's film, when in fact it was the other way around. So it's quite a smart little thing there, and it kind of maybe made his film stand out a little bit more. But you know, history would tell us that it was really originated from Eisenstein and his work with Potemkin. So there we go. I really enjoyed that. It's pretty cool. There's 3 other films from GPO Films, who John Grierson worked for. So there's Granton Trawler, Trade Tattoo, and North Sea from 1934, 1937, and 1938, respectively. Like one's 11 minutes, one's 6 minutes, one's 32 minutes. One's a dramatic reconstruction of seafarers' battle with the elements. A celebratory animation made from offcuts of other films, including Drifters and Night Mail. Interesting. And Grierson's follow-up to Drifters, one of GPO Film Unit's first experiments with sound. So I won't be watching it for this because they're sound films, but it's cool that they're included on here nonetheless. So there we go. That was that. I believe this was film 24, I think, something like that. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to finish off the night with one more film. It's about 50 minutes long, I think, or maybe an hour long. And so I'm going to watch that and then go to bed. And Connie's giving me the squinty eye, and but it's going to be the final film in the Oz Film Manufacturing Company trilogy from 1914. So I've already watched the what was the first one? The Patchwork Girl of Oz, the Magic Cloak of Oz, and then this one will be His Majesty, the Scarecrow of Oz, which is the one that's in the worst shape. It does have a score, but I flicked through it and it just doesn't. It sounds really just generic and probably done after the fact. So I'm going to complete this little trilogy by listening to a Pink Floyd album while I watch it, the same way I did with the other two. And the one I'm going to go with is The Division Bell, which is one of my favourite Pink Floyd albums, but also mainly for time reasons. The Division Bell, I think, is 1 hour and 5 minutes long, and this one is about an hour long, so it'll kind of almost fit up. Not as perfectly as the first two films that I watched with Pink Floyd albums, The Endless River and Wish You Were Here. So yeah, it won't sync up perfectly in terms of just the timing of the film and the album, but it'll be enough, I guess. So I'll film that, and then I'll probably film my reactions in the toilet so that I don't wake Connie up. Which I've done quite a couple of times, in case you didn't know. Yeah, well now you do. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to crack on with the His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz from 1914, and that'll be the end of day 10 of the Silent Movie Marathon 2. Jesus Christ, here we go. Alright, so this will hopefully be the last bathroom section of this whole marathon. And the third and final film released in 1914 in the Wizard of Oz trilogy. And I guess you call it the 1914 Wizard of Oz trilogy, the Oz Films Company trilogy. His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz. Spoiler, by the way, that's how the film ends. The Scarecrow becomes the King of Oz. But yeah, this one, I don't know, it wasn't as good as the other two. It lost me at times. The print has been damaged, I think, and also it doesn't, the framing isn't correct, and they've lost the correct framing, so a lot of times in the shots, characters' heads would be cut off and things, you wouldn't see a lot of what was going on. I make it sound worse than it was. There was only in a few instances, but it bugged me. We have, what's her name, Vivian or Violet Reed, something like that. I've forgotten her name already, but she finally got to play a girl in one of these films. She played Dorothy. And, put that down. And, I don't know, by all rights it should have been a much better one because it had characters that I knew more. This is an adventure that features Dorothy, the Tin Man or the Tin Woodsman, the Scarecrow, of course, is pretty much the main character, and the Cowardly Lion gets involved as well. You got the Wizard of Oz is in there as well. He has a bigger role than in any of these silent films that I've seen so far, from 1910 to 1914. So it had all the ingredients to make a much more interesting story, but it just meandered. Kind of lost my interest at times. The story revolves around Princess Gloria and King Cruel, and I just thought of King K. Rool from the game Donkey Kong Country. But King Cruel, he wants his daughter, the Princess Gloria, to marry this guy, and she doesn't want to marry him. She's in love with Pon, I believe his name was, just a simple gardener, I guess, in the castle grounds, and he wants none of that, and so he gets the evil witch Mombi to freeze Gloria's heart. And there's a really cool sequence where she kind of pulls her heart out of her chest and it freezes and stuff. They tried some cool effects in this. They tried to do another one of the kind of like the Batman 66 where they walk up the wall. You know, basically the effect where you just walk across a set, but you tilt the camera on its side and you kind of dress it so it looks like you're walking up a building. They did that with the wall in the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and this time they tried to do it with water. They called it the water wall, and so they had the camera kind of tilting with them kind of lying down on a raft across a river, and it almost worked. I admire the fact that they tried it, but it didn't quite have the desired effect, I don't think. The guy who played the Patchwork Girl of Oz plays the Scarecrow. He's an acrobat, and so he does a couple of cool things as the Scarecrow, but not as much as you'd expect. And Gloria, she just kind of, I mean, the whole film has Dorothy going around trying to, with Pon, to try and find a way to, I guess, unfreeze Gloria's heart, and she just wanders around like just an apathetic statue to everything, really. And then Mombi, the witch, she just kind of follows along with them in a way, and then she just makes matters worse. I don't know, she turns up and she'll do something, and then they'll walk off, and they'll go somewhere else, and then she'll turn up again and kind of just be like, meh, and you know, she didn't really look like an evil witch. She looked more like a annoying great aunt, you know. She had like a colourful hat and stuff. There's a really funny moment where she goes to they all go to the Tin Woodsman's house, or his castle, I think, and she meets the evil witch Mombi meets the Tin Man, basically, and he just looks at her and he just chops her head off with his axe. And what they did was they put a black hood over the actress's head, and they were standing in a doorway that was black, and so it kind of has the illusion that her head was missing. And it was quite a cool little effect, and it just made me laugh. It was funny. Anyway, I liked the little intertitle that said that Dorothy has been rudely captured by the evil witch Mombi. I just thought rudely captured was a funny wording of it. And also, they meet this little girl, and she says, I'm Button Bright. I don't know where I came from, and I don't care. I just thought there was a wonderful whimsy to that, you know. I don't know where I came from, I don't know why I'm sat here, but I am, you know, and I just don't care. So, but she didn't really turn out to be an interesting character either. Then the Wizard of Oz turns up. There's a cool gag where he kind of shrinks the evil witch Mombi down into a tin can that says preserved sandwiches, and then he uses some black paint to paint out sand and the ES on the end, so it says preserved witch. It's kind of a funny sight gag, but yeah, overall not really that good. I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10, just meandering. You know, the fucking the awful lonesome Zoop made a third appearance in the shared Oz Films Company cinematic universe. just for no reason at all. I'm sure there was a shot in there that was recycled from the Magic Cloak of Oz as well, with the horse Nicomedes. I'm sure they just used the same shot. So anyway, that is it. That was about 4 out of 10 I'd give it. I mean, it just didn't have the flow for me as the other two. I can't remember what did I rate those? Like 6 or 7 out of 10, something like that. And the music, The Division Bell, one of my favourite Pink Floyd albums, just didn't really. I mean, I say that, you know, if you put music up to images, after a while things start fitting. But, you know, there's also instances where they just don't fit at all, and I enjoyed listening to the album again, but it just didn't really do much, and I kind of feel bad because, you know, quite a few people got together and conducted music for this in 2005, and I didn't listen to it. But, you know, again, I don't feel too bad because it wasn't an original score. If it was an original score from the time period, I would have definitely stuck to it, but it wasn't, so I don't know. It was an interesting experiment anyway. So that was my little trilogy of the 1914 Oz Films Manufacturing Company trilogy with Pink Floyd accompaniment. But yeah, there was a company formed to make these films, and they made 3, and then that was it really. So, you know, it was what it was. Next up in the Wizard of Oz cycle of silent films is there's one left on the Blu-ray as a special feature, and it is The Wizard of Oz from 1925. So that'll be the next one I watch, and I'll probably watch that tomorrow and kind of complete the 5 Wizard of Oz silent films that are on the Blu-ray, and that'd be cool to say that I've watched them all. And yeah, then moving on to the rest of the films in glorious high definition. I haven't felt too bad about breaking my HD rule for these Wizard of Oz films to watch them in standard definition. They've looked really good actually, even though the films are heavily damaged and stuff. Just generally the image quality has been fine, and I've enjoyed them a lot. But yeah, the 1925 Wizard of Oz is much more feature length, it's like an hour and a half. It looks a lot more substantial in terms of just the print quality and the story quality and the production value, so I'm looking forward to checking that out, and I will open that up tomorrow for day 11 of the Silent Movie Marathon 2, and then we'll move on with the rest of the Blu-rays. There's about 4 or 5 left, so yeah, still a lot to get through, but you know, we've done most of it now at this point, so it's pretty yeah, it feels pretty cool. And I'm also kind of just looking at all the footage I've got now, and I'm thinking, how is this even going to work? I just don't know. I don't know. To quote Bill Murray, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, that's it for tonight. Until tomorrow when it starts all over again.